And thanks for sticking around. I want to ask you about the changing NBA landscape. And to me, the big thing, the LeBron James legacy, is all the power that the players have now in this game. And Anthony Davis basically forces his way to L.A. What do you think about the impact of those two together?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. You're absolutely right. The NBA has shifted in so many ways, playing style, but the power that the players have now is so much different than it was even 10, 15 years, well, really 10 years ago. I think about the LeBron James factor becoming like, I'm going to make super team, right? And now you see Anthony Davis, same agent, Rich Paul, Clutch Sports. I thought they overplayed their hand with New Orleans earlier in the year, ended up working out. But now they're going to move some stuff around and they can get another max guy. It's hard to say the Lakers aren't going to be one of the 3 or 4 contenders in the league.
The West gets tougher, doesn't it, when you have Anthony Davis join LeBron James? He disagrees with me, but anyways. Houston is an interesting story as well, because that's a team that was supposed to be a contender, and every time they keep running into a brick wall. Do they remain that, or are we going to see that thing being completely revamped?
So if you're Houston right now, you feel like you maybe missed your window, because 2 years ago they were right there. Chris Paul hurts his hamstring. This last year they get beat again. Now there's issues with Mike D'Antoni. I think D'Antoni ends up staying there long term. I think with the Rockets, I don't know if it's salvageable. This whole idea that you can play the way they play, which is really no defense, and just shoot a lot of threes, we haven't seen it necessarily work, I guess, at the highest level in the NBA playoffs. And James, I think, is as great as Harden is, I think he's hard to play with. And there's got to be some kind of middle ground between him and Chris Paul, other than just you go, I go.
This is why the West has not gotten tougher. The reason why Houston has not made it to the finals
Just so you
in
know,
their
Jordan,
system.
these two went at it in our first
Yeah.
block.
Oh, I was told, yeah.
They're simmering. Still
And the Mike D'Antoni system hasn't worked. It's because they ran into a super team and a dynasty and one of the greatest teams of all time in the Golden State Warriors. Now, the Golden State Warriors are not going to be relevant next year.
No.
So therefore, Houston becomes the favorite. Maybe LA now with Anthony Davis.
I would put Utah maybe with Mike Conley
I
ahead
would
of
put
Houston.
a known before unknown teams that have never been there. I agree Utah's a lot better, no question. I agree LA's going to be better now with Anthony Davis. Portland's up there, no question. But Houston, they didn't have Chris Paul for most of the year. They didn't have Clint Capella for most of the year. James Harden carried them to the playoffs. And then in the playoffs, they've had some turmoil, but they've always ran into the tough Golden State Warriors.
But Wally, they never make the plays when it matters most. That system just doesn't seem to work.
They never get the stops. You know, they fire their defensive guru. He's gone. They fired Irv Roland. They fired everybody, really. Daryl Morey's he's been a real creative guy for them. He's an interesting person, and he's a GM that sees the game differently. But at some point, maybe they would need to adapt. I don't think they're a contender.
It's on James Harden, first of all. Stop blaming the system, the defensive guru, this guy, that guy. James Harden is the superstar player on that team. He has to make the clutch shots down the stretch to pull them through series when they're up 3-2 like they were against Golden State. So until he makes those plays to beat a team like Golden State, I don't know why you would blow it up now that Golden State isn't there, because James Harden has proven he can get you to a point, he can get you a high seed in the West, and without Golden State in his way, who knows what they're capable of? I think they have championship aspirations.
Why are you looking at your
Alan's
watch?
looking at his watch,
I mean, I was worried we're running out of time. I mean,
You're not one to look at one's watch for long comments, my brother.
I didn't realize that.
No, we're debating here. This is a good debate.
Just messing with you. That's Bill's shirt. It fits you well, though.
By the way, we're going picnicking on this guy's shirt. We're going to lay it out on the lawn.
That's a classic New England gingham.
It's called gingham. Anyways, is there this thing that we're noticing, a bit of a West Coast bias when it comes to star free agents? Because over the last, 10, 15 years, when there's been a superstar free agent, for the most part, they go west. East Coast teams that have cap space, East Coast teams generally that try to build, unless you're Miami, which is just like the West, palm trees, you have to trade or draft players.
Right.
This idea of having cap space and drawing free agents, it just doesn't seem like it's working.
I wonder if that changes for some. If Kawhi looks at this and says, nobody's going to beat me in the East, why would I go west?
There you go.
The Clippers, they have made him the number one target. They believe they have a great young core. They have cap. They want to build a new arena. They have everything going for him. But why would he leave Toronto? That would be. It wouldn't be the same but he'd be staying. You know, I wonder if that would be.
They still had to trade for him, though.
They had to trade for him.
I think that's the point I was trying to make, is that it just seems like, are you trying to draw a player? And LeBron going from Miami to Cleveland doesn't count, because that's
Right.
him going home and finishing business. But it's just interesting to note that, and I wondered if you've seen the same thing, that it just feels like you can have cap space. I mean, Philly had to trade for people to get them to play there. Detroit had to trade for Blake Griffin. All
Boston-
these teams are trading.
What
Boston,
about
the same
Boston?
thing. When they
Jordan,
built, they had to
Boston
trade for people.
drafted Rozier, they drafted Tatum, they drafted Brown. They did trade for Kyrie.
And Horford wants out.
Kyrie
Seems like he wants
And
out.
what's going to happen
Kyrie's
in
out,
Boston
yeah.
now? What
I
happens
think
there?
I think Boston is in another identity crisis. Boston may be the Houston of the East.
Wow.
Now they have more young pieces, but an identity crisis in the sense of what are we? They have these young wings. They have a point. They don't have a point guard because Rozier is going to leave, I think.
Wait a second. You think Rozier's going to leave even when Kyrie leaves?
I think that Rozier believes he can get more money than Boston.
Restricted free agent right now. Yeah.
I think there's a pretty decent shot Rozier leaves because the situation with him in Boston got so toxic. Remember, he said nobody sacrificed more than me.
But that's because Kyrie was there.
Right, but that's also Danny Ainge saying Kyrie's our guy. He's the superstar. Then it's Tatum. Then it's Jalen. Then Rozier, you're like fourth or fifth. Oh yeah, Hayward as well. So, and I think Boston's in a tough spot.
And Rozier's the guy who
I think
said, "Hey, did you
Boston's
forget
in
what
a
I
much
did
tougher
2 years
spot
ago
than
in the playoffs?"
Scary Terry.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he did not have the same kind of year. I think going back to Houston, just to put a loop on it, I think the CP thing and Harden, from what I understand, has been blown way out of proportion. I think that's fine. They're just in a position where they're locked into Chris Paul for $100 million over 3 years, and how are they going to be able to find a suitor? That's really what it comes down to.
That's almost immovable. Were you shocked by the Conley trade, or did you expect the team would take that contract?
I did because he's still a really good NBA player, and he's
31 too.
He's 31.
Yeah, he's in his prime.
We talk about what has Utah needed. It's shooting. They've had Neto and Rubio, 2 point guards who can't shoot, as well as Exum, can't shoot. What does Donovan Mitchell need? He needs somebody to alleviate some of that pressure and allow him to just chill and not necessarily always have to make a play. We saw that against Houston. They just loaded up on him, basically just played a pack line defense in the playoffs. So I like that trade a lot for Utah, and Memphis gets a 23rd pick, and maybe they build around Moran and another young player.
Where do you think Horford
And Jaren Jackson.
Where do you think Horford ends up?
So Al, I wasn't surprised that he opted out. I think it surprised people because they
Doesn't he have to know, Jordan, that something's coming?
Exactly right.
Like
So-
there has to be some underground info, right?
Yeah.
Where he
So
knows
we know
he's
free
getting
agency's
40
already
That's what an agent's for, Bill.
No, but you're not supposed to
you're
be able
right.
to talk ahead of
No,
the deadline.
Bill.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. Back channel, whatever. He knows something's coming his way.
Exactly. I don't know if it's a promise, but like he's got one more big deal left. And Al was kind of the quiet. He basically had the best season of anybody in Boston. I would argue.
Yeah.
He had
He's
a
the
really
backbone of that defense.
Backbone of that defense.
Absolutely.
Veteran, gets it, winner, and he has one more big contract left. I think he's got some kind of other deal. But there's going to be 3 or 4 teams lobbying for Al. There's no question about it.
He was exposed against Antetokounmpo, though. He had no shot against him.
Just as Antetokounmpo
As a
was exposed
matchup?
against Kawhi.
Yeah, the matchup
Just so you know,
was not
Jordan,
good.
Not good.
Wally picked Boston come out of the East, just so you know.
Yeah.
Just so we're
So he wasn't happy. Well, I picked Milwaukee.
Okay, well, they did better than
We're
Boston.
both wrong.
Jordan, great to meet you.
Okay,
Thanks
Bill,
for
thank you so
dropping by.
much.
All
I
right,
appreciate it.
ESPN,
Go Red Hawks.
NBA.
By the way, I played at Seattle U for 2 years, also the Red Hawks.
Okay.
So we have a connection. Not as good of a program, but
I love it. I love it.
For more great videos from the MSG 150, check out right there. And remember, our show is on Monday through Thursday, 8 to 10:30 p.m. on MSG Network and MSG Go.